let's do our first topic. Let's jump in. If you're from Toronto, honestly, Vancouver as well, like they're going through something very similar.
There's something different, man.
You could say a major city in general, like New York has had this problem forever, but the increased violence on the TTC is something we can't just like skip over.
Yeah, like
it's been very obvious.
Yeah, for those who might not know or not be from Toronto,
sure, yeah,
it's like I think it was either last week or the week before, where there's like 5 consecutive days where like something bad happened.
Last
like the
week
police
there were
had
like
to get involved.
3 or 4 in a row.
Yeah.
The previous week there were a bunch, and it's like I don't know if it's just more reporting than there was before. I don't know if it's statistically increased, but the headlines are scaring the hell out of me, man.
Yeah,
like,
man.
You're seeing people getting robbed, stabbed, attacked,
like,
random attacks,
provoked, like just in general, how does stuff like this happen?
Yeah.
But I caught myself saying that, and then I started to realize where it's like there's a lot of factors as to why things like this happen. People are exactly. Yeah. People are quick to like go to the comment sections and say, "Oh, well, Toronto's become so violent. This stuff never happened back in my day." It's like, maybe not as much, or maybe it was reported on differently. But there's a lot of things to be taken into consideration here.
Like what?
Like inflation, the cost of everything is going up.
Yeah.
And not a lot of, and wages aren't. So like whether or not this is a direct byproduct or indirect byproduct of something like that happening, like, at the end of the day, you have a city full of people where like costs are going up, rent is increasing, things are very much being, and costs are being increased to the point of it not being affordable anymore as it pertains to food
and priced out of their own city,
cars or anything like that. So it's like a lot of people are getting priced out of their own city, to your point.
Yeah.
And it's a very difficult problem to manage when you have like, people getting literally pushed out from like a living perspective, right?
Yeah.
And then even if you were to go out to Mississauga or Etobicoke or the East End, whatever, Scarborough, like there's places there where it's like, man, like people are again like being forced out of areas like that, and those are like the places where people used to go when it was like, I can't live in Toronto because it's too expensive.
Yeah, of course, man. Like I think it's that, but then like the byproduct of that is like increased homelessness, right? Like because there's people that they cannot afford the rent anymore. That there's not enough jobs paying what they
bad
need.
Stuff like drugs, alcohol,
100%. Mental health issues deteriorate.
Rely on the system.
100%.
The system is broken. The system doesn't keep people afloat.
And if you think coming out of the pandemic too, that's when I started to really see the change. Just like living downtown, I'm like, oh, there's like a lot more people without homes than I've ever seen before.
Totally.
Coming out of the pandemic where a lot of people lost their jobs and their health deteriorated and all that. They didn't have the services.
People are getting
available.
desperate. Yeah.
People are getting desperate, right? So you're seeing the byproduct of that 2 years later, 3 years later, manifest itself on the TTC, where every time you're on the subway, man, like I'm on it a lot to go to the gym that I go to, and there's always something going on, some person having this like panic attack or situation where you're like, I need to observe this for my own safety to make sure.
I gotta be aware.
I need to be aware. Like I'm turning the music down a little bit, and I'm this tall guy that like, I'm no fucking bodybuilder, but like imagine people that are like way smaller and like don't have the male privilege and all of that. Like I'm sure they're terrified,
Totally.
And you're seeing that manifest itself in the conversations we have as citizens of Toronto. You're seeing on the TikToks, like we're masking it by humor, but the jokes we're making about hold the keys in between your knuckles when you're on the TTC and all that. It's like we're laughing about it, but like that's a reality.
There's somewhat of a truth within that, 100%, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of makes like, I don't know, like I just started the meal delivery program, like Chef's Plate or whatever it is.
Right.
This last week for the first time ever. I'm a late adopter or whatever that term is. Okay, like this is a new world to me.
Yeah.
And like we got, I don't know, like 4 or 5 meals, and it's like 2 big portions each for $50. I'm like, oh, wow. That's pretty great. And mind you, it was like the discounted first time member price or whatever it is. Man, I picked up like 3 or 4 things from like that like independent grocery store across the street, and bro, I like owe the bank money after that, bro. Like carrots cost me $5, bro.
Yeah.
I'm just like, man, like this is crazy.
Yeah.
And when you take that Like, I can afford it because I'm lucky enough to have, like, a job where I can, like, sustain and, like, save my money and whatnot.
Sure.
But, like, man, like, when people are living paycheck to paycheck, you know, they're getting desperate. And I saw something very recently where, you know, I can't remember which grocery store chain, it was one of the big ones. They just released their profits for, I think it was a Q4 last year or something like that.
Soaring to the
and
roof.
it's like, everything's getting jacked up and, like, they're having record years. And I'm like, man, this is, like, just straight up exploitation.
You're seeing a lot of grocery theft now. Like, I'm actually seeing it, and the numbers are indicating it as well. But, like,
whenever
am I independent? I'm seeing people rob the store, and I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah, man.
That's when you know, man.
Because I'm like, man, like, this shit happens way more than ever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, like, we're reaching a point where I'm like, tensions are so high between people. People are getting desperate to eat. And, like, man, in a city that fully has the infrastructure and the money to be able to at very minimum sustain and take care of its people, isn't doing that, well, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
People stealing from the rich, basically.
So let's look
creating
at
a bigger divide.
Let's look at what they're trying to do to remedy this situation on the TTC. So John Tory
entertain me.
is proposing a $48.5 million increase to the police budget, which is a 4.3 increase from last year.
So expected.
I don't know if you've been on the subway recently or the streetcars, but you're starting to see an increased police presence. And there are a couple photos that went viral on, like, Toronto viral over the weekend. One with this guy with an assault rifle at Union Station, and it's like, sure, you had the cap on it, but, like, why do you have that?
Like a police officer.
A police officer.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, a police officer. And another one that the Toronto Police Twitter account posted where the officer was on horseback outside of the station, and everyone's like, what if he needs to go down the station? Like, well, why do you have a horse?
I'm not gonna lie, man, and we can just derail this for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I had no fucking clue why cops have horses. Like, you can't give me like one legitimately good reason as to why a police officer needs to be on, like,
a
horseback. Like,
how do you arrest someone? Like,
yeah, it's like, hey, stop right. They have the rope where, like, someone's, like, driving off and they have a rope and they throw it on the car and they're wrangling in.
Yeah.
It's like, man, like, when you think about it,
it's supposed to be for crowd control, but
sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, you take away, like, you look at how much does a horse cost? I'm gonna say at least like $5,000. Yeah. I'm gonna guess that I'm probably wrong. It might be more.
Yeah, it's more.
But, like, and there's thousands of them that, like, the cops, there are maybe like 100 horses, let's call it.
Yeah.
To maintain.
Yeah.
So you need to feed these horses enough so that, like, they can, like, walk for a considerable amount of time.
Yeah.
You need to take care of them.
Train them.
For what? They fucking leave horse shit on the side of the road.
And cops don't pick
Somebody
that up.
gets in trouble for when their dog takes a dump on the sidewalk and doesn't pick it up, but a horse is fully okay with dropping a fucking load in the bike lane, and that's all right. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not to make a joke into the episode here, but, like, you know, when you talk about increasing the budget, am I going to see more fucking horses on the road?
Really? Yo, there are people photoshopping a horse on the subway.
yeah, dude, I don't understand it. Yeah. If there's anybody out there, and I know probably fucking Jake or whatever his name from TikTok, if you give me one legitimate reason why a cop needs to be on a horse,
like a single cop on one horse. This is not crowd control. This is one horse and one cop.
Just walking up and down the street.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Give me that.
To fix, like, TTC crime. Meaning, okay, you're outside of a subway station, but what if something happens on the track? So what are you doing? You're going to park the horse and then run down? Like, I don't... You know what I mean?
There's just so many questions about logistically how this works. It doesn't make any sense. So to tie this back together, when you look at, like, a $50 million increase to the police budget, and, like, in the grand scheme of city planning, like, $50 million isn't a crazy amount of money, but it's still, like, $50 million that could be used towards almost anything else. Because, like, the first reaction is, hey, there's more violence that's happening. We should get more police officers to stop the violence.
Band-Aid.
Haven't we realized that this is the wrong way to treat problems yet? Like,
you know what they're going to do?
What's that?
What they're already doing is they're, like, trying to get rid of homeless people sleeping on the subway, which it's not an issue to anyone else as long as, like they need somewhere to sleep.
Yeah.
They're going to probably arrest fare invaders and all of that. Like, this is not increasing the safety.
Yeah.
If anything, I feel more scared seeing someone with an assault rifle, police or not, at the station. I'm like, what can happen?
What is happening that warrants somebody with this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just don't get it, man.
This is like, John Tory needs to be taking the subway.
Yeah, 100%.
Politicians need to be taking the subway for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, you need to see this shit in real life, man.
100%.
You need to see this in action. You need to have the lived experience of like a citizen that needs to get to work, or a citizen that needs to go to school.
Yeah.
A mom taking her kids, or a dad taking, his kids to school on the subway, or sending his kids on the subway to go to school. You think that they're going to feel all right with something like this?
This is going to get bad.
Yeah, well, it's going to get bad. And it's like you can feel an energy in the air, man. Like it's hard.
Yeah.
And like I'm sitting here in a condo, a safe building.
Straight up.
I am like totally good. But it's not necessarily about that. It's like, hey, take a look around and realize that like you have to be accountable to making things better for the people who live in your city.
Yeah. Easily.
At bare minimum.
So man, we're just seeing the start of it. So we talk about this every week. So we'll see how this stuff evolves and if the city gets better with more police. But
I think we know the answer to that one
easily. Well, let's
Jake's
move on.
Gonna be pissed at
Jake, Clarkson and Jake.
Yeah, Clark. Yeah. Fuck those guys, man.
So this one is complete different